The galaxy had enjoyed peace for 300 cycles. That peace died screaming on a Tuesday. Ambassador Relon watched the holographic displays flicker with distress signals from 3 separate colony worlds. His compound eyes tracked each stream of data with growing dread. The Ravager swarm had returned, and this time they were different. Adapted, evolved, unstoppable. High Chancellor Overim perched on his elevated seat in the council chamber, his feathered crest flat against his skull in distress. Around the circular room, representatives from 47 species murmured in their various languages. Fear smelled the same in all of them. Praxis 7 has fallen silent, Reln announced, his mandibles clicking nervously. That makes 3 worlds in 2 weeks. Our defense fleets report 70% casualties. They cannot hold, a reptilian council member hissed from across the chamber. How have the Ravagers adapted so quickly? Our energy weapons were effective before. They consume technology, Overim replied, his voice carrying the weight of his 2 centuries in leadership. They learn from what they eat. Every ship we send teaches them how to defeat the next one. Defense Minister Quarn slithered forward, his serpentine body coiling in agitation. We have exhausted conventional options. Our species evolved on worlds with low gravity and controlled atmospheres. We are not warriors. We are thinkers, builders, artists. The Ravagers are none of these things. Silence fell over the chamber. Everyone knew what had to be discussed, but no one wanted to speak it aloud. Finally, a small crystalline being named Chalice spoke from the observer's gallery. There is one option we have not considered. The Deathworld species. The chamber erupted in protest. Overim raised his wing for silence. You speak of the humans. I speak of survival, Chalice countered. My people are dying on Praxis 7. I care little for our prejudices if they can help. Relon had reviewed the classified files on humanity. The species had been discovered 40 cycles ago, broadcasting radio signals from their isolated system. The initial survey team had returned traumatized. Earth was a Class 12 Deathworld, the highest hazard rating in the database. Extreme gravity, violent weather, predators at every level of the food chain, and diseases that could wipe out entire colonies of civilized species. The humans themselves were worse. They had evolved as persistence hunters chasing prey until it collapsed from exhaustion. They had redundant organs, excessive pain tolerance, and a disturbing ability to function while injured. Their history was an endless cycle of warfare. Extinction events survived through sheer stubbornness, and technological advancement driven by the need to kill each other more efficiently. The Council had voted to quarantine Earth. Humanity was deemed too dangerous for contact, but that was before the Ravagers adapted. They will demand a price, Overim said quietly. Deathworlders always do. They can have whatever they want if they save my people, Chalice replied. The vote took 3 hours. It passed by a narrow margin. Reln was assigned to make contact. The transmission was simple. A distress call, coordinates, and a request for military assistance. Reln expected weeks of negotiation. Humanity had been isolated after all. They might not even receive the message for months. The response came in 4 hours. This is Captain Neil Grant of the Earth Defense Force. We received your transmission. We accept. Our fleet will arrive in your system within 3 days. Please transmit tactical data and rules of engagement. Also send a medical database. Our doctors will need to know how to treat your species if we're fighting alongside you. Grant out 3 days. It took Council ships 3 weeks to cross that distance. Reln shared the recording with the Council. Overim listened 3 times before speaking. They sound eager. That is what concerns me, Reln admitted. When the human ships arrived, they did not look impressive. Blocky industrial designs compared to the elegant curves of Council vessels. But they moved wrong. Too fast, too aggressive. Like predators circling prey. Captain Grant requested permission to dock. Overim granted it reluctantly. The human who stepped through the airlock took Reln's breath away. Grant was massive, nearly 2 meters tall, with broad shoulders and visible muscle beneath his uniform. His eyes faced forward, binocular vision for tracking prey. His teeth, briefly visible when he smiled, included pointed canines designed for tearing meat. Ambassador Reln, I presume. Grant extended his hand, a human gesture of greeting. Reln touched it cautiously with his foreleg. The grip was firm, controlled, but Reln could feel the strength behind it. This creature could crush his limb without effort. Thank you for coming, Captain, Reln managed. Happy to help, Grant replied. His smile widened. We've been hoping for a chance to introduce ourselves properly to the galaxy. Saving some lives seems like a good start. Behind Grant, more humans filed through the airlock. 50 soldiers in dark armor carrying weapons that looked brutal and primitive. Kinetic firearms, chemical explosives, bladed weapons for close combat. Technology the Council had abandoned millennia ago as barbaric. Dr. Sophie Ward, the human xenobiologist, approached Overham with a data pad. Chancellor will need environmental specs for the combat zones. Temperature, atmosphere composition, gravity, standard stuff. The conditions on Praxis 7 are extremely hazardous, Overham warned. High radiation, thin atmosphere, temperature extremes. Sophie glanced at her pad and shrugged. Sounds like Nevada. We'll be fine. Reln did not know what Nevada was, but the casual dismissal of conditions that would kill most Council species sent ice through his blood. Grant gathered his troops in the docking bay. Reln watched through security feeds as the human captain addressed his soldiers. Listen up. We're the first humans these folks have ever met in person. Let's make a good impression. Professional conduct, minimal casualties, maximum efficiency. The galaxy is watching. Show them what Earth is made of. The soldiers responded with a unified shout that made Reln jump. It sounded like a war cry. Perhaps it was. As the human fleet prepared to depart for Praxis 7, Overham stood beside Reln at the observation window. Have we made a terrible mistake? We were dying before they arrived, Reln replied. Perhaps we still are. But at least now we die fighting. Or we survive, Overham said softly, and learn to live with what we have unleashed. The human ships engaged their drives and vanished into faster-than-light travel. Reln began composing his report. Whatever happened next, the galaxy would never be the same. Humanity had entered the stage, and everyone would have to adjust to their presence or learn to fear it. Observer Tin had volunteered for this assignment. Now floating in the medical bay of the human carrier ship Dauntless, he deeply regretted that decision. Medical Officer Kelra pressed scanning instruments against his aquatic skin for the third time. Her hands trembled slightly. Your readings cannot be accurate, she whispered in her native tongue to her assistant. No species survives in these conditions. But the humans did more than survive. They thrived. Tin had boarded the Dauntless 12 hours ago with 6 other Council observers. Their mission was simple: document human military operations and report back to the Council. Within minutes of crossing into human-controlled space, Tin realized the enormous mistake they had made. The artificial gravity was crushing. 1 full G, the same as Earth's surface. Tin's species had evolved in 0.4 G. Every movement felt like swimming through syrup. The humans moved normally, completely unbothered by weight that would cripple most civilized species within hours. Commander Roy Phillips, the leader of the deployment team, found Tin struggling in the corridor outside the medbay. You need assistance? Tin wanted to refuse on principle, but his body was failing. The gravity, it is too much. Roy nodded and tapped a device on his wrist. Control, reduce gray in observer quarters and medical to 0.4 G. Authorization Phillips. Immediately, sir, a voice responded. Within seconds, Tin felt the pressure ease. He gulped air gratefully. You can adjust gravity in specific sections? Sure, it's inefficient energy-wise, but we figured you might need accommodation. Roy smiled. Don't worry. You'll stay in the low G sections. Wouldn't want you getting hurt. The casual way Roy said it made Tin understand something disturbing. The humans were not trying to be intimidating. This was normal for them. They genuinely did not realize how terrifying they were. Sergeant Amira Hassan gave Tin his first real tour. She was shorter than Commander Phillips, but moved with the same predatory grace. Her dark eyes scanned constantly, evaluating threats that did not exist on a friendly ship. Instinct, Tin realized. Humans never stopped hunting. This is the armory, Amira explained, gesturing to a room filled with weapons. Tin recognized nothing. The Council used directed energy weapons, elegant tools that disabled rather than destroyed. These human devices looked like instruments of slaughter. Amira picked up a rifle with practiced ease. Standard kinetic carbine. Fires a 7mm projectile at roughly 800 meters per second. Effective range about 500 meters, though trained shooters can push it further. Simple, reliable, deadly. You use metal projectiles? Tin asked, horrified. That technology is 4,000 cycles old. Older on Earth, Amira agreed cheerfully. But it works. Energy weapons are great until someone figures out how to absorb or reflect the energy. Bullets are harder to stop. Physics doesn't negotiate, she demonstrated other weapons. Explosive charges that used chemical reactions to create devastating force. Bladed weapons for close combat. Even a flame projector that Tin refused to believe was legal under any civilized warfare convention. We don't use the flamethrower much anymore, Amira admitted. Bad for morale on both sides. But it's effective in certain situations. Private Owen Smith joined them in the armory. He was young, barely into adulthood by human standards on his first deployment off-world. He greeted Tin with enthusiasm that seemed reckless given the circumstances. "This is so incredible," Owen said, examining his armor components. "First contact mission and combat deployment all at once. My folks are going to lose their minds when I tell them." "You are not frightened?" Tin asked carefully. Owen paused, considering the question seriously. "I mean, a little, but we trained for this. Plus, we've got good commanders and solid intel. The Ravagers sound tough, but so are we." The confidence was not bravado. Owen genuinely believed what he said. All the humans did. They had looked at the tactical data showing the Ravagers decimating Council forces and concluded they could win. Tin attended the mission, briefing in a specially modified chair that supported his aquatic physiology. 70 human soldiers filled the room, sitting casually in the crushing gravity. Commander Phillips stood at the front beside a holographic display. "Listen up. We're hitting Praxis 7 in 16 hours. Enemy is the Ravager swarm. Silicon-based collective intelligence that eats technology and adapts fast. They've already learned to counter Council energy weapons and exploit the environmental weaknesses of our allies." Phillips highlighted sections of the planet. "Our job is to break their siege on the primary colony. Council forces are pinned down in the capital city. Ravagers control everything else. Terrain is rough. High radiation, thin atmosphere, temp swings from -40 to +70 Celsius. One soldier raised her hand. "Respirator protocol, sir? Standard mask should be sufficient. Rad exposure is within acceptable limits for short-term operations. Medical says we're good for 72 hours before we need treatment." Tin tried to process that. Radiation levels on Praxis 7 would kill most species in hours. Humans plan to fight in it for 3 days. "Rules of engagement are flexible," Phillips continued. "Council wants minimal collateral damage, but they've authorized necessary force. Remember, we're making first impressions here. Let's show the galaxy what professionalism looks like." After the briefing, Tin cornered Medical Officer Kelra. "You must stop them. Those conditions will be fatal." Kelra's eyes were haunted. "I have reviewed human medical data. Their species survived an ice age, multiple disease pandemics, and several near-extinction events. They have redundant organs, excessive healing capabilities, and pain tolerance that borders on pathological. One documented case involved a human continuing to fight for 30 minutes after sustaining injuries that should have caused immediate death. That is impossible. I have the scans. Their blood clots faster than any species on record. Their bones are incredibly dense. Their muscles can operate anaerobically when oxygen deprived. They are, by every definition we have, indestructible compared to us." Tin found Commander Roy in the observation deck, watching the stars streak past during FTL travel. "Your people seem unconcerned about the danger ahead." Roy shrugged. "Danger is part of the job. We train for it, plan for it, execute despite it. That's what soldiers do." "But you could die." "Sure, could die crossing the street back home too. Could die from a dozen diseases or accidents. Life's risky. At least this way we die doing something meaningful." The philosophy was alien to Tin. Council species avoided risk whenever possible. They planned, calculated, retreated when necessary. The idea of willingly entering danger for abstract concepts like duty or honor seemed primitive. Yet here were the humans, racing toward a battle that terrified everyone else, treating it like just another day at work. Owen found Tin later, excited to show him something. "Check this out. Ship's gym. Want to see what we do for fun?" The gymnasium was filled with humans engaged in activities that looked like torture. They ran on machines going nowhere, lifted heavy objects repeatedly, and sparred with each other in combat practice. "All while laughing and joking. This is recreation?" Tin asked weakly. "Best part of the day," Owen replied, grinning. "Keeps us sharp. Plus, it's a good way to blow off stress." Tin watched a pair of soldiers grapple on a mat, each trying to force the other into submission. They were smiling, enjoying it. He finally understood what the council had done. They had not simply asked for help. They had invited apex predators into their home, creatures who trained for violence the way others trained for art or science, beings who looked at lethal conditions and saw acceptable challenges. As the Dauntless dropped out of FTL near Praxis 7, alarms blared throughout the ship. Human soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, gathering weapons and armor. No panic, no fear. Just focus, Commander Roy passed Tin in the corridor. Stay in the observation deck. You'll be safe there. We'll handle the rest. Commander, Tin called after him. Good luck. Roy smiled, and for just a moment Tin saw the predator behind the professional facade. We don't need luck, Observer. We're humans. We make our own. The deployment bay doors opened and humanity went to war. Governor Chalice had stopped believing in rescue 3 days ago. Now, crouched in the reinforced shelter beneath the capital city of Praxis 7, she listened to the Ravagers tear through the outer defenses and prepared to die with dignity. The silicon-based creatures had evolved into perfect killing machines. Each encounter with Council forces taught them new tricks. Energy weapons that once burned through their crystalline bodies now reflected harmlessly off adapted surfaces. Defensive barriers they could not penetrate last month now crumbled under focused assault. The Ravagers learned and adjusted faster than any natural species should. Governor, we're receiving a transmission, her aide announced. It's from the humans. Chalice had heard the rumors. Deathworlders from a quarantined system called in desperation. She had expected monsters. The voice that came through the comm system sounded disturbingly ordinary. Governor Chalice, this is Lieutenant Kim Davis, Earth Defense Force. We're about 3 kilometers from your position and closing fast. Advise you keep your people in the shelter. Things are going to get loud. Lieutenant, the Ravagers have adapted to all conventional weapons. They will overwhelm you as they have everyone else. A pause, then laughter. Actual laughter from a soldier approaching certain death. Governor, respectfully, we're not conventional. ETA 10 minutes. Davis out. Chalice accessed the external cameras, expecting to see human forces advancing cautiously like council troops. Instead, she witnessed something that defied tactical sense. The humans were running toward the Ravagers, not retreating, not taking defensive positions, running forward. Lieutenant Kim led from the front, her armor streaked with dust and scorch marks. Behind her, 20 soldiers moved in coordinated patterns that looked chaotic but clearly were not. They used cover efficiently, advanced in overlapping waves, and communicated with hand signals that suggested extensive training. The Ravagers detected them immediately. A cluster of the silicon creatures, each roughly 3 meters tall and resembling mobile crystal formations, turned to face this new threat. They had learned that council species fled from intimidation. They began their fear display, high-frequency vibrations that caused psychological terror in most sentient beings. The humans did not slow down. Corporal Luis Mendez, carrying what appeared to be a heavy weapons platform, actually accelerated. He dropped to one knee, aimed, and fired. The weapon produced a tremendous roar that shook the shelter's walls 3 kilometers away. The projectile struck a Ravager center mass and exploded, not vaporized, not disabled, exploded, shattered into 1,000 fragments that scattered across the battlefield. Kinetic explosives. Chalice whispered in shock. They're using kinetic explosives. The Ravagers had no adaptation for this. Energy weapons they had learned to counter, but solid projectiles traveling at supersonic speeds, followed by chemical explosions inside their bodies, bypassed every defense they had evolved. The swarm adjusted tactics. They attempted to overwhelm the humans through numbers, flowing forward like a crystalline tide. Kim barked orders and her squad responded instantly. Half laid down suppressing fire while the rest repositioned. When the Ravagers closed the distance, expecting easy prey, the humans switched to close-range weapons. One soldier, her name tag reading Hassan, met a Ravager's charge head-on. At the last second, she sidestepped and swung a weapon that looked like an ancient axe. The blade, some kind of diamond-edged alloy, bit deep into the creature's leg joint. The Ravager collapsed, and Hassan finished it with 3 shots from her sidearm before moving to the next target. They fought like they enjoyed it. Private Owen Smith, the youngest human Chalice could see, took a glancing blow from a Ravager limb that would have killed any council soldier. He stumbled, regained his footing, and shot the creature in what passed for its head. His armor showed a massive dent, but he kept fighting. "Command, this is Davis," Kim transmitted. "We've got visual on the siege lines. Requesting permission for fire support." "Granted," a voice responded. "Danger close protocols in effect." Seconds later, projectiles screamed overhead. They impacted behind the Ravager lines in a series of massive explosions that turned the battlefield into a temporary hellscape of fire and fragmentation. The siege equipment the Ravagers had constructed, adapted from captured Council technology, disintegrated. Governor Chalice realized these humans understood warfare on a level the Council had forgotten. They did not simply fight. They orchestrated violence with terrible precision. The Swarm Prime, the collective intelligence directing the Ravager forces, recognized the threat. It pulled back, regrouping for a concentrated assault. The silicon creatures formed up in a dense formation and charged. Kim saw them coming. "Mendez, you're up." Luis triggered his heavy weapon repeatedly. Each shot was a controlled detonation that tore through multiple Ravagers. But there were too many. They would reach the human line in seconds. "Fix bayonets," Kim ordered calmly. Chalice did not understand the term until she saw blades extend from the humans' rifles. They were going to meet the charge with hand-to-hand combat. Madness. Except it worked. The humans formed a defensive line and held it through sheer stubborn ferocity. They fought with a coordination that suggested instinctive understanding of each other's movements. When one soldier needed to reload, another covered their position. When a Ravager broke through, 3 humans converged to eliminate it. Owen took another hit, this time to his shoulder. The impact audibly broke something. He switched his rifle to his other hand and kept shooting. After 20 minutes of sustained combat, the Ravagers broke, not retreated tactically. Broke, fled in disorganized panic back toward their tunnels. The Swarm Prime had encountered something it could not adapt to fast enough, an enemy that refused to act like prey. Kim surveyed the battlefield, counted her people, and nodded in satisfaction. "Governor Chalice, you can come out now. Area is secure." Chalice emerged from the shelter with her staff. The scene was devastating. Ravager bodies littered the ground in various states of destruction. The humans moved among them, checking for threats with weapons ready. Several were clearly injured, but still functional. "Lieutenant, your casualties?" Chalice asked. 3 wounded, none critical." Owen busted his shoulder. "Hassan has some cracked ribs, and Davis, that's me, probably has a concussion." "Will live. Probably had a concussion," said while coordinating a perimeter defense and casualty report. A medic, whose name patch read Cruz, examined Owen's shoulder with instruments Chalice did not recognize. "Dislocated." "Hold still." Diana Cruz gripped Owen's arm, braced against his torso, and pulled sharply. There was an audible pop. Owen grunted in pain but did not scream. "Good as new," Diana announced, injecting something into his shoulder. "That'll hurt for a week. Try not to use it for heavy lifting." Owen rotated his shoulder experimentally. "Thanks, Doc. Feels great already," he meant it. Chalice could see it in his expression. These creatures had pain tolerance beyond anything she understood. Kim approached Chalice. "Governor, we need to discuss defense coordination. The Ravagers will regroup and hit us again. Probably within 6 hours. We should prepare. You intend to stay?" Chalice asked. "That's the job. We didn't come all this way to win one fight." Kim pulled out a tactical display. "Show me your defensive positions. We'll integrate our forces with yours and set up a perimeter that'll be harder for them to crack." Over the next hour, Chalice watched the humans transform the colony's defense. They worked with brutal efficiency, placing weapons, setting traps, and training Council soldiers on basic tactical principles. Principles the Council had abandoned long ago as too aggressive. Luis demonstrated his explosive charges to a group of terrified Praxian guards. "See, you just place it here, set the timer, and get clear. When the Ravagers come through, boom. No more Ravagers." "That seems excessively violent," one guard protested. Luis shrugged. "Violence solves some problems. This is one of them." As night fell on Praxis 7, Chalice stood on the shelter's roof beside Lieutenant Kim. In the distance, she could see lights from Ravager tunnels. They were regrouping just as Kim predicted. "They will come again," Chalice said quietly. "Yes, they will," Kim agreed. "And we'll be ready. That's what we do, Governor. We stand between the monsters and the people we're protecting. Sometimes we're the scarier monster. Works out in everyone's favor. Except the original monsters. Are all humans like you?" Kim considered this. More or less. We're a stubborn species. We don't quit easy. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. We survived. Everything else is just practice. When the Ravagers attacked again at dawn, they found humans waiting. And they learned that Earth had sent its warriors to deliver a simple message. The galaxy had a new apex predator. Chronicler Pell had documented 17 civilizations over his 4 centuries of life. None had prepared him for humanity. He floated in his observation tank aboard the Council research vessel, reviewing footage from all 3 combat zones. The humans had been deployed for 9 days. All 3 colonies were secured. Ravager forces were in full retreat. By every military metric, the mission was succeeding beyond projections. So why did Pell feel such deep unease? He played back footage from Tertius Colony. Colonel Frank Hayes, the overall mission commander, walked through a field hospital where human and alien wounded received treatment side by side. A human medic named Diana Cruz worked on a Tertian soldier whose breathing had stopped. Diana's hands moved with controlled urgency. She administered drugs, performed chest compressions, and shocked the soldier's dual hearts back into rhythm, all while covered in dust and dried blood from previous patients. When the Tertian gasped back to consciousness, Diana smiled and moved immediately to the next patient. She has been working for 14 hours without rest, Pell's assistant noted. How is she still functional? Pell had no answer. Human endurance defied biological logic. The footage shifted to Colonel Frank addressing a group of Council military observers. Frank was older than most humans in the deployment. His hair gray at the temples, face lined with experience. He moved with quiet authority that made younger, larger aliens defer instinctively. Your concerns are noted, Frank said patiently to a reptilian commander who had questioned human methods. But understand, we fight the way we do because it works. Energy weapons are elegant. Kinetic weapons are effective. We'll take effective over elegant when lives are on the line. Your methods are brutal, the commander hissed. War is brutal, Frank replied without apology. We didn't make it that way. We just acknowledge reality and act accordingly. You can call our tactics primitive if it makes you feel better. The colonies we saved probably have different opinions. Defense Minister Quarn had requested Pell's presence at an emergency council session. Pell arrived to find the chamber in chaos. Representatives shouted over each other, displaying fear that bordered on panic. They are too dangerous, one ambassador declared. We have invited predators into our homes. They saved 3 colonies in 9 days, another countered. Our forces were dying before they arrived. High Chancellor Overham called for order. Chronicler Pell, present your findings. Pell activated his holographic display. I have analyzed human military operations across all 3 theaters. The data is disturbing not because of what humans do, but because of how casually they do it. He showed footage of human soldiers training during downtime. They ran for exercise, carrying heavy packs in crushing gravity. They practiced combat techniques on each other with intensity that would injure Council species. They laughed while doing it. This is how they relax, Pell explained. They simulate trauma for recreation. It conditions them to treat actual danger as routine. More footage. A human patrol encountered a Ravager ambush. Instead of retreating to regroup like Council doctrine dictated, they advanced into the ambush, flanked it, and eliminated the threat in under 3 minutes. Then they continued their patrol as if nothing significant had occurred. They do not experience fear the way we do, Pell continued. Or rather, they experience it and ignore it. Their training emphasizes control over instinct. They feel afraid and act anyway. Minister Quarn's tongue flicked nervously. How did such a species evolve? I reviewed Earth's geological and biological history, Pell said. Humans evolved under extreme selective pressure. Their planet experienced multiple mass extinction events, ice ages, volcanic supereruptions, meteor impacts, disease pandemics. Each event killed billions but left survivors who were harder, more adaptable, more stubborn. He displayed Earth's military history. They have been at war with each other for their entire recorded history. 2 global conflicts in the 20th century alone. Countless smaller wars. They developed nuclear weapons and used them. They have destroyed entire cities out of strategic necessity. The chamber fell silent. They are not cruel, Pell added quickly. Review shows humans are capable of remarkable compassion, but they have a capacity for controlled violence that eclipses any species in Council space. They are, by definition, the perfect warriors, and we invited them here. Ambassador Reln spoke up. I have observed Colonel Hayes personally. He is reasonable, thoughtful, even kind to his subordinates. But I watched him plan an assault that accepted 15% casualties as acceptable losses. He made that calculation without hesitation. Because to him it is acceptable, Pell explained. Humans have different thresholds. What traumatizes us is Tuesday for them. Governor Chalice appeared via hologram from Praxis 7. Her crystalline form still showed damage from the siege. With respect, counselors, this debate is premature. The humans saved my world. My people were dying. Now we live. Whatever dangers they represent, they have proven themselves allies. For now, Minister Quorn said darkly, what happens when they decide they want more than gratitude? We cannot fight them. Our weapons are ineffective against species that evolved under such conditions. Frank Hayes appeared in the council chamber 3 days later, summoned to address the assembly. Pell noted the human colonel showed no intimidation, despite being surrounded by representatives from dozens of species, many of whom feared him. Colonel Hayes, Overham began carefully, the council expresses gratitude for your assistance. However, concerns have been raised about future relations. You're afraid of us, Frank said bluntly. The chamber erupted in denials. Frank waited patiently for silence. It's fine. We're scary. I get it. Frank folded his hands calmly. You called us Deathworlders and meant it as a warning label. Fair enough. Earth is a dangerous place. Made us into dangerous beings. But dangerous doesn't mean evil. He activated his own holographic display showing footage Pell had not seen. Human soldiers helping rebuild damaged structures, sharing food with hungry refugees, teaching alien children games from Earth. One image showed Private Owen Smith, arm still in a medical brace, carrying a young Tertian on his shoulders while the child laughed in delight. We're warriors, Frank continued. We're good at violence because our history demanded it. But we're also builders, teachers, parents, artists. We contain multitudes, Chancellor, just like every species here. Your casualty thresholds disturb us, Quorn said. They disturb us too, Frank replied quietly. Every soldier I lose haunts me. Every injury my people sustain keeps me awake at night. But I still send them into danger because that's the job. Someone has to stand between the innocent and the hostile. We volunteered, and if we asked you to leave? Overham asked carefully. Frank met his gaze steadily. We'd leave. We don't go where we're not welcome, but respectfully, Chancellor. That's a decision you should make carefully. The Ravagers aren't your only threat. The galaxy is bigger and more dangerous than you've acknowledged. You've lived in peace for 300 cycles because nothing scary found you yet. That just changed. Ambassador Reln clicked his mandibles nervously. Are you threatening us? No. Frank shook his head. I'm warning you. The universe doesn't care about your preference for peace. Danger exists whether you acknowledge it or not. You can either prepare to face it or hope it ignores you. We chose preparation. That choice made us who we are. Pell watched Frank leave the chamber. The human's words echoed in the silence. That night, Pell reviewed more footage. Diana Cruz, exhausted after a 20-hour shift, still stopped to comfort a young alien whose parent had died in the fighting. Owen Smith, teaching Praxian guards basic defensive tactics with patience and humor. Lieutenant Kim Davis sharing coffee with Governor Chalice and discussing architectural philosophy. They were complicated, violent and gentle, dangerous and protective, warriors and poets. Pell began composing his official report. The conclusion troubled him, but intellectual honesty demanded it. Humanity represents a paradigm shift for the Galactic Council. They are the first true warrior species we have encountered. They possess capacity for violence that exceeds any known civilization. However, they also demonstrate compassion, creativity, and strong ethical frameworks. They are dangerous, but perhaps that danger can be directed outward, toward threats against the Council rather than threats to it. Recommendation: provisional acceptance pending further evaluation. We may fear our saviors, but we need them more than we admit. He sent the report and wondered if the Council would have the wisdom to accept it, or the courage. The underground complex on Tertius sprawled for 15 kilometers beneath the planet's crust. Council forces had tried to breach it 4 times. 4 times they had failed with catastrophic losses. Now it served as the Ravagers' final stronghold, and Captain Rachel Ford studied the tactical display with cold calculation. Projected casualties are 83% if we go in direct, her lieutenant said quietly. Command is calling it a suicide mission. Rachel nodded slowly. Around her, The dauntless briefing room held 50 human soldiers who volunteered for the assault. Every single person in her special operations unit had stepped forward when she explained the situation. No hesitation, no complaints, just acceptance. 83%, Rachel repeated. Those are terrible odds. Yes, ma'am, but not impossible odds. Private Owen Smith sat in the front row, his shoulder still healing from Praxis 7. He had been through 2 major engagements already. Medical had cleared him for duty over his protest that he felt fine. Now he listened to Rachel outline a mission that would probably kill most of them. Here's the situation, Rachel began, highlighting the complex on the display. The Ravagers have fortified this position with everything they've learned from fighting us in the Council. They know we're coming. They've adapted. This won't be like the surface fights. She zoomed in on the tunnel networks. Environment is hostile. Temperatures exceed 60 degrees Celsius in some sections. Atmosphere is toxic. Radiation is significant. And the Ravagers will be fighting on their home ground with every advantage. Ambassador Relon watched from the observer gallery. Beside him, High Chancellor Ovrim had come personally to witness what he feared would be humanity's final mistake. They listened as Rachel methodically outlined a plan that sounded like organized extinction. We go in 3 teams, Rachel continued. Alpha breaches the main entrance, creates noise and draws attention. Beta and Charlie enter through these collapsed mining tunnels we've identified. We converge on the central chamber where the Swarm Prime is coordinating their defense. Kill the brain, body dies. Captain, a soldier named Paul raised his hand. How exactly do we survive the environmental conditions long enough to fight? Rachel smiled grimly. We probably don't. This is a speed run. We get in, complete the objective, and extract anyone left alive. Estimated time to target is 47 minutes through hostile conditions while under fire. Medical says we have maybe 90 minutes before radiation exposure causes permanent damage. It's tight. Owen processed this. They were planning to fight in an environment that was actively killing them, against enemies that had adapted to counter their tactics, with almost certain casualties, and everyone in the room looked determined rather than afraid. Rules of engagement? Someone asked. Whatever works, Rachel replied. The Council has authorized complete tactical freedom. No restrictions. We do what we need to do. Ovrim leaned close to Relon. They are actually going to attempt this. Yes, Relon whispered. They are. The assault began at dawn. Alpha Team hit the main entrance with overwhelming firepower. Explosives collapsed the defensive structures the Ravagers had built. Kinetic weapons tore through adapted armor. Fire suppression forced the silicon creatures back into deeper tunnels. It was a distraction, but the Ravagers committed forces to it anyway. The Swarm Prime could not risk ignoring a direct assault. Rachel led Beta Team through a mining tunnel that had collapsed decades ago. They cleared rubble by hand, moving rocks that weighed hundreds of kilograms. The effort would have exhausted Council soldiers in minutes. Humans sustained it for 30 minutes while wearing full combat gear and breathing through respirators. Owen was part of Charlie Team, led by Lieutenant Kim Davis. They descended through a ventilation shaft that was never meant for foot traffic. Hand over hand down a rope in near darkness, equipment weighing them down. Owen's shoulder protested every movement. He ignored it. Temperature rising, someone reported. 58 degrees. Acknowledged, Kim replied calmly. Increase hydration. Watch for heat exhaustion. They were going to boil inside their armor. Owen could feel sweat already soaking his underlayer. His respirator felt too tight. His vision narrowed slightly. He pushed through it. Everyone else was. He would not be the weak link. The tunnel opened into a massive chamber. Ravagers filled it. Dozens of the crystalline creatures, all adapted, all waiting. Kim did not slow down. Contact front. Advance and engage. Charlie Team exploded into the chamber with practiced aggression. They moved through withering fire, taking casualties, pressing forward anyway. Owen saw a soldier named Patricia take a hit that shattered her leg. She dropped to one knee and kept shooting. Owen's rifle ran dry. He dropped it, drew his sidearm, and continued advancing. A Ravager lunged at him. He shot it 3 times, watched it fall, and moved to the next target. His brain felt fuzzy from heat and exertion. His body was failing. He fought anyway. Beta Team breached from the opposite side. Rachel's voice crackled over comms. We have visual on the Prime. Converging now. The Swarm Prime was massive, 3 times the size of normal Ravagers. It pulsed with internal light. coordinating its forces through vibrations too complex for human equipment to interpret. When it detected Rachel's team, it focused every nearby creature on stopping them. Rachel led the charge. She moved like violence personified, each action efficient and deadly. Her team flowed around her, supporting without needing orders. They had trained together for years. They knew each other's rhythms instinctively. Corporal Luis Mendez placed his heavy weapon against a support pillar and fired. The explosion brought part of the ceiling down on a cluster of Ravagers. Dust and debris filled the chamber. Visibility dropped to meters. All teams converge on my position, Rachel ordered. We're finishing this now. Owen could barely see. His lungs burned. His muscles screamed. His shoulder had gone numb. He followed Kim through the chaos, trusting her to lead them right. Around him, humans fought with a desperation born from knowing they were dying anyway and choosing to make it mean something. They reached the prime from 3 directions simultaneously. The creature recognized the threat and attempted to retreat. Rachel was faster. She leaped the final distance, planted explosive charges directly on its surface, and rolled clear. Fire in the hole. The detonation was catastrophic. The prime shattered, fragments scattering like shrapnel. The lesser Ravagers immediately began moving erratically, their coordination lost. Without the prime's guidance, they were just dangerous animals. Extract! Extract! Rachel shouted. Everyone out now! The withdrawal was chaos. Humans carrying wounded comrades, fighting rearguard actions, collapsing from heat and radiation exposure. Owen found himself supporting Patricia, her broken leg dragging. Kim helped from the other side. They made slow progress up the ventilation shaft. Diana Cruz waited at the surface with a medical team. She triaged patients with brutal efficiency, sending the worst cases to surgery immediately. Owen sat down hard, breathing raggedly through his respirator. Someone pulled it off his face. The fresh air was beautiful. Casualties? Rachel asked Diana. 43 wounded. 15 critical. 8 confirmed dead. Rachel closed her eyes briefly. 83% estimate. We got off light. Overim and Reln approached as Rachel sat down heavily beside Owen. The Chancellor's feathers were flat with shock. Captain Ford, your losses are catastrophic. Rachel looked up at him. 15% casualties to eliminate the Ravager command structure and break their siege on 3 colony worlds. I'll take that trade every time, Chancellor. Those 8 soldiers saved millions of lives. You speak of them so casually. No, Rachel said quietly. I don't. I'll remember every name. Write letters to every family. Live with those decisions for the rest of my life. But I'll still make them when necessary. That's what command means. Owen watched Diana work on Patricia's leg. The medic was calm, professional, completely focused despite having worked nonstop for days. Patricia gritted her teeth against pain but did not cry out. Around them, wounded soldiers helped each other, shared water, made jokes to keep spirits up. You are terrifying, Reln said softly. Yes, Rachel agreed. We are, but we're also on your side. That's what matters. The Ravagers surrendered 3 hours later. The Swarm Prime's death had fractured their collective intelligence. Individual creatures scattered into deep caves, no longer organized enough to threaten anyone. That night, Rachel stood at the memorial service for the 8 fallen soldiers. She read each name, told each story. The human survivors listened in silence. The alien observers watched and finally began to understand. Humans were not monsters. They were people who had learned to do monstrous things when necessary, and that made them both terrifying and invaluable. Overim approached Rachel after the service. I underestimated your species, Captain. Everyone does, Chancellor. Rachel stared at the memorial markers. We're good at violence, but we're better at knowing when to stop. That's what separates warriors from barbarians. Will you teach us? Overim asked quietly. Teach you what? How to be strong like you. Not just physically, but here. Overim touched his chest. In the will to do difficult things, Rachel considered this. It takes generations, Chancellor. Pain and pressure and choice. You can't shortcut it, but we can stand beside you while you learn. That's what allies do. 3 months after the Ravager War ended, Ambassador Leo Barnes discovered that winning battles was easier than winning peace. He walked through the Council's orbital station above Talos 4, feeling eyes follow him everywhere. Some looked at him with gratitude, others with fear, most with uncertainty. Humanity had saved 3 colony worlds and destroyed the Ravager threat. Now nobody quite knew what to do with them. Leo had been a diplomat for 20 years before Earth made first contact. He understood politics and careful words and the art of making enemies into friends, but he had never negotiated while representing a species everyone considered dangerous predators, barely restraining themselves from violence. The council chamber was packed for today's session. The vote on humanity's membership status. Leo sat in the human delegation area, watching representatives file in and whisper to each other. Beside him sat Colonel Frank Hayes, present as military liaison. Frank looked uncomfortable in his dress uniform, much preferring combat fatigues. "Nervous?" Frank asked quietly. "Terrified," Leo admitted. "You can shoot your way through most problems. I have to talk through them. Sometimes talking is harder." High Chancellor Overham called the chamber to order. His feathers, once flat with fear, now showed cautious respect when he looked at the human delegation. "We gather today to determine humanity's place in the Galactic Council. Ambassador Barnes, please address the assembly." Leo stood. Public speaking had never bothered him before. Today he felt the weight of billions watching. "Honorable Chancellor representatives, I come before you not to demand membership but to request partnership. Earth does not seek dominance. We seek belonging." He activated a holographic display. 3 months ago you sent a distress call. We answered. Not because we wanted power or territory. We answered because it was right. Because people were dying and we could help. That's simple. The display showed footage from the 3 colonies. Not battle scenes. Reconstruction efforts. Human engineers working alongside Praxian builders to restore damaged infrastructure. Human teachers helping Tertian children learn about Earth while learning about Tertius. Soldiers playing games with alien kids, sharing meals with refugees, helping elderly aliens carry supplies. "We are warriors," Leo continued. "We won't apologize for that. Our history made us what we are. But we're also poets and scientists and parents and dreamers. We contain multitudes. Just like you." Minister Quarn spoke up, his serpentine form coiled tensely. "Your military capabilities disturb many species here. How do we know you will not turn those capabilities against us?" Leo had expected this. "You don't, not with certainty. Same way we don't know for sure you'll accept us as equals. Trust is risk. Always has been. But consider this. We had 3 months of military control over 3 colony worlds. We could have claimed them, fortified them, refused to leave. We did none of those things. We helped rebuild and prepared to depart when asked." He pulled up economic data. Earth has resources. Technology you don't. We offer trade, not tribute. Medical knowledge from treating injuries most species never survive. Engineering techniques developed under extreme conditions. Military training for those who want it, though never forced. We offer partnership between equals. Governor Chalice stood. Her crystalline form still bore scars from the Ravager siege. "If I may speak, Chancellor. Humanity saved my world, my people. I watched Private Owen Smith, wounded and exhausted, carry Praxian children to safety. I watched Captain Rachel Ford weep for soldiers she lost saving people she had never met. I watched these so-called Deathworlders demonstrate compassion equal to their combat skill." She turned to address the chamber. "We can debate their danger, or we can acknowledge our debt and welcome them. My vote is clear." Other voices rose, some supportive, some opposed. Arguments flew back and forth about precedent and risk and unknown factors. Leo listened, making notes, preparing rebuttals. Observer Tin surprised everyone by speaking. The aquatic being had been silent throughout the debate. "I have lived among humans for 3 months. I have seen them at their worst and best. They are complicated, frightening and kind, dangerous and protective, but they are also honest. They do not hide what they are. That transparency is worth something." The debate stretched for hours. Finally, Overham called for vote. All in favor of granting humanity provisional council membership. The vote was close. 24 in favor, 20 in opposition, 3 abstaining. Provisional membership passed by the narrowest margin. Overham announced the result. Humanity is granted provisional membership with the following conditions. Military exercises must be coordinated with council oversight. Cultural exchange programs mandatory. Annual reviews of membership status for 5 cycles. Ambassador Barnes, do you accept these terms? Leo stood. We accept, Chancellor. Thank you for this opportunity. We won't waste it. In the observation gallery, Private Owen Smith watched with a mix of pride and anxiety. His shoulder had healed well, though Diana Cruz insisted he continue physical therapy. He wore his dress uniform uncomfortably, missing his combat gear. Beside him sat Patricia, her leg in an advanced brace that let her walk. She nudged him gently. "We made it. We're officially part of the galaxy now." "Are we?" Owen wondered. "That vote was close. Half the council still fears us." "Then we spend the next few years proving we're worth trusting," Patricia replied. "Same as any relationship." In the human quarters, Rachel Ford assembled her remaining special operations team. 15 soldiers, including Owen, gathered around her. "Command is recalling most of us to Earth, rotating new units in for the cultural exchange programs, but they're offering permanent postings here for volunteers. Anyone interested in staying?" 10 hands went up immediately. Owen's was among them. Rachel smiled. "Figured. Command approved a permanent training liaison mission. We'll work with council species who want to improve their defensive capabilities. Teaching, not fighting. Different kind of deployment." "What about the ones who don't want us here?" someone asked. "We change their minds," Rachel said simply. "One person at a time. One act of kindness at a time. Same tactics we used to win the war, just applied to peace." Over the following weeks, Owen found himself in unexpected situations, teaching Tertian guards hand-to-hand combat techniques, helping Praxian engineers understand structural integrity principles developed under Earth gravity, playing Earth games with alien children who giggled at the strange human. One day he encountered a young Talisian who looked at him with obvious fear. The insectoid child stayed close to her parent, compound eyes wide. Owen knelt down slowly.
"Hey there."
"I'm Owen. What's your name?" The child hid behind her parent's leg. "It's okay to be scared," Owen said gently. "I look pretty weird, right?" "You look weird to me, too. Different isn't bad. Just different." He pulled out a small toy from his pocket, a simple wooden puzzle his sister had sent from Earth. "Want to try solving this?" "It's tricky." Curiosity overcame fear. The child reached out tentatively, took the puzzle and began working on it. Within minutes, she was chattering excitedly about the mechanism. Owen smiled and let her keep it. That night, Observer Tin found Leo in the human diplomatic office. "Ambassador, I have been documenting human integration. May I share my findings?" "Of course," Leo said, offering Tin a specially designed seat that accommodated his aquatic needs. Tin activated his datapad. Initial contact showed 43% positive impression, 57% negative or fearful. After 3 months, those numbers shifted to 68% positive, 32% negative. Trajectory suggests majority acceptance within 2 cycles. "What changed?" Leo asked. "Direct contact. Council species feared the concept of humans. When they met actual humans, fear diminished. Your species is skilled at personal connections. You read emotional states well. Adjust behavior appropriately. Make people feel safe despite your physical advantages. We're social creatures," Leo explained. "Had to be to survive Earth. We evolved in groups. Cooperation is built into us as much as competition." Chronicler Pell entered, floating in his observation tank. "Ambassador, I completed my comprehensive study of humanity. Would you like to see the conclusion?" Leo nodded. Pell displayed his report. "Humanity represents a paradigm shift for galactic civilization. You are the first true warrior species to join the Council, but you are also teachers, healers, builders. You have weaponized empathy as effectively as you weaponized violence. You understand both how to hurt and how to heal. That duality makes you invaluable." He highlighted specific sections. Recommendation: full membership after provisional period. Humanity brings capabilities the Council desperately needs, not just military strength, but resilience, adaptability, the will to face challenges rather than avoid them. These traits will be crucial for our collective future. "You think we face more threats?" Leo asked. "The galaxy is vast," Pell replied. "The Ravagers were one danger among many. Now that our location is known to Earth, it will become known to others. We need allies who do not break under pressure. Humans do not break. They bend, adapt, and overcome. That is worth more than weapons." High Chancellor Ovram visited the human quarters personally a month later. Leo greeted him with surprise. "Chancellor, this is unexpected." "I wanted to speak informally," Ovram said, settling onto a perch designed for avian species. "Away from council politics and observers." "Of course. What's on your mind?" Ovram was silent for a moment. "I voted against quarantining Earth 40 cycles ago. I was overruled. I have always wondered what would have happened if we had made contact then. Why did you oppose quarantine? Leo asked. Because fear is a poor foundation for policy. We labeled your species dangerous and locked you away. That decision nearly cost 3 colonies their existence. We should have been building bridges instead of walls. It worked out, Leo said diplomatically. Did it? 8 humans died saving us. 43 were injured. That is a terrible price for our cowardice. Leo met his eyes. Those soldiers knew the risks. They went anyway. That's who we are, Chancellor. We stand between danger and innocent people. Sometimes we get hurt, sometimes worse, but we do it anyway because someone has to. Overeem's feathers rose in what Leo had learned was respect. Your species has taught us something important. Strength is not just physical capability. It is the courage to use that capability in service of others. We had forgotten that. You reminded us. So what happens now? Leo asked. Now we learn from each other. You teach us to be stronger. We teach you to be gentler. Perhaps together we create something better than either of us alone. A year later, Owen stood in the same council chamber, watching new human ambassadors present their credentials. The humans in the room had become familiar faces rather than frightening strangers. Children played in the diplomatic quarters without fear. Joint military exercises had become routine. Cultural exchange flourished. He still got nervous looks sometimes. Some species would always find humans intimidating, but increasingly he also got smiles and waves from aliens who knew him by name. Rachel approached him with news. Command approved the next phase. We're establishing a joint training academy. Human and alien instructors teaching integrated tactics. You interested in a teaching position? Owen considered this. He had come to the stars expecting to fight. Instead, he was building something. Yeah, I'm interested. Good, we need people who understand both worlds. You've got the temperament for it. As Owen left the chamber, he passed the memorial wall, honoring the 8 humans who died in the Ravager War. Their names were carved in stone alongside the names of council soldiers who fell defending their homes, equal, honored, remembered together. Ambassador Leo stood beside the wall, running his fingers over the carved letters. Owen joined him in silence. Think they'd be proud? Owen asked. I think they'd tell us to stop being sentimental and get back to work, Leo replied with a smile. But yeah, I think they'd be proud of what we're building here. The uncomfortable peace was becoming comfortable. Trust was growing. Humanity was finding its place among the stars, not as conquerors or monsters, but as the complicated, contradictory, impossible beings they had always been. Warriors and poets, dangerous and kind, feared and loved, exactly as they should be.